This video is about test planning within complex embedded systems. Here is the high-level overview of the test planning process, starting with the input on the left, which are any reasons to test, and the umbrella term for that are the test trigger. Then the actual doing of this process step is to convert all the relevant information that are needed for the test activities. And they are then collected as an output, which are usually test execution plans. First, let's talk more about test trigger. So as said, test trigger are basically all reasons to test. And there are two types of test trigger: generic and erratic test trigger. Generic test trigger follow a predefined plan, which are usually outlined in the test plan. So that could be that you expect a new software to test every week, or you follow a specific release plan that the whole project or organization is operating with. And then there are erratic test trigger. Those occur due to unplanned or random events. That could be urgent and unplanned bug fix releases that needs to be tested, or some sudden request of the project team to test something. And for those erratic test trigger, it is important to screen them properly, for example, in specific meetings, issues, or basically any other input that the project has. During the test planning itself, there are certain dimensions you have to consider and specify. So starting with the test object itself. So sometimes it's very clear what to test. So if you have a very dedicated software release, but sometimes in more complex system and more complex test trigger, it might not be that obvious. So therefore, it's very important to define the object under test and also make clear what is not tested. Then where to test. So this refers to the test infrastructure and test environment. So it could be a specific test setup. So for example, specific browsers software needs to be tested, or specific test bench. And then also like the environment, whether you test on production or any test environments. Then how to test. So this refers to the test cases that are used or test sets that are used for this specific test trigger, or it might be also some test instructions if in that case it's a more free and exploratory test. Who to test. So you have to define whether a specific individual of the test team should test this, or if you just hand it over to the team and they decide, or also if the test should be tested by an automation. It's also important to define that in this step. And when to test should answer all the questions that are time related. So sometimes it is important to not start before a specific date, or of course also finish the test before a specific milestone. So in the planning, any time-related constraints need to be considered and outlined. All of those efforts usually end in a test execution plan, which is the result of the test planning with all the relevant information for the test execution. So that is used to execute the test. And the main part of it are the test cases that are to be executed for a specific test trigger. But there might be also additional meta information that are defined or collected during the test planning. Basically what we have seen in the previous slide. And there may be additional test instructions, so information that goes beyond the information in a test case because they are relevant for this specific test execution only.